Framing. Imagine someone tells you that a glass is 90% full. Another person describes the exact same glass as 10% empty. Nothing changed except the words. Yet your emotional reaction probably did. This is the framing effect, demonstrated repeatedly in the work of psychologists Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman. Your brain rarely evaluates information in isolation. It evaluates the story wrapped around the information. A salary becomes generous or disappointing, depending on what it is compared to. A risk feels terrifying or acceptable, depending on how it is introduced. Conversations are often won long before the facts arrive, because the frame determines how every fact will be interpreted. Have you ever changed your opinion simply because someone described the same situation differently? Anchoring. Suppose you walk into a store and see a jacket marked down from $400 to $150. Suddenly it feels like an incredible bargain. But what if the jacket was never worth $400 in the first place? Your mind grabbed onto the first number it saw and used it as a reference point. That's anchoring. Tversky and Kahneman showed that even completely random numbers can influence later judgments without people realizing it. In everyday conversations, someone might casually mention an extremely high expectation before proposing something much smaller. The second request now feels reasonable, even if it never was. The first number quietly reshapes every number that follows. How often do your expectations begin with someone else's starting point? Reciprocity. Someone gives you a small favor. Maybe they buy you coffee. Maybe they spend extra time helping you. Suddenly saying no feels uncomfortable. This tendency has existed in human societies for thousands of years because cooperation helped communities survive. Social psychologist Robert Cialdini describes reciprocity as one of the strongest principles of persuasion. Your brain doesn't like leaving social debts unpaid. Skilled communicators understand this. They offer value first, not always because they're generous, but because they know your mind naturally wants to return the kindness. The favor may be tiny, yet the obligation can feel surprisingly large. Have you ever agreed to something simply because someone had already done something nice for you? Social proof. You hear everyone talking about a new restaurant. It must be good. Thousands of people recommend the same product online. It must work. A room begins applauding. You join in before thinking. Humans evolved in groups where following the majority often increased survival. If everyone ran, you probably should too. Today, the same instinct shapes everything from shopping habits to political opinions. Solomon Asch demonstrated how people could knowingly give incorrect answers simply because everyone else in the group did the same. Your brain constantly asks a simple question. What are other people doing? Sometimes that question quietly replaces another one. What do I actually think? Mirroring. Pay attention during your next conversation. You may notice someone subtly matching your posture, your speaking speed, or even your favorite expressions. Most people instantly feel more comfortable around those who seem similar to them. Often, they never notice why. Researchers studying interpersonal communication have found that behavioral synchrony increases feelings of trust and connection. When someone reflects your body language naturally, your brain interprets them as familiar rather than threatening. Familiarity creates comfort. Comfort creates openness. Suddenly, sharing personal thoughts feels easier than expected. Was the connection genuine, or was your brain responding to similarity? The power of silence. Most people rush to fill awkward pauses. Silence feels uncomfortable because your brain interprets uncertainty as tension. Skilled negotiators know this. They make an offer. Then they simply wait. Seconds stretch longer than they really are. Eventually, the other person begins talking just to escape the discomfort, often revealing information they never planned to share. Silence creates pressure without saying a single word. The person speaking first often gives away more than they intended. Sometimes the loudest form of persuasion is saying absolutely nothing. How many secrets have been revealed simply because someone refused to break the silence? Labeling. Imagine someone tells you that you're the kind of person who always keeps your promises. Whether or not it's completely true, your brain now wants to behave consistently with that identity. People generally prefer seeing themselves as predictable and morally consistent. Once a label becomes attached to your identity, your future choices often begin protecting that label. Instead of asking you to perform an action, someone first tells you who you are. The action naturally follows. It feels like freedom because you're choosing it yourself. Yet the path was quietly prepared beforehand. Could a single sentence about your identity influence your next decision? Scarcity. Someone says there are only 2 seats left. Suddenly, you want one. A product becomes limited edition. Interest explodes overnight. Scarcity doesn't necessarily increase value. It increases perceived value because your brain equates rarity with importance. Behavioral economists have shown that people consistently assign greater worth to opportunities they believe might disappear. Fear of missing out is often stronger than excitement about gaining something new. Conversations use this constantly. A job offer won't stay open forever. This chance may never come again. The urgency feels real because your brain evolved to avoid losing valuable opportunities. But is the opportunity actually rare, or does it only sound rare? The foot in the door effect. Someone asks for a tiny favor. It seems harmless. Later they ask for something much bigger. Surprisingly, you're more likely to agree than if they had started with the larger request. Researchers Jonathan Friedman and Scott Fraser demonstrated this effect decades ago. Once you commit to a small action, your brain starts updating your identity. You're now the type of person who supports this cause or helps this individual. The larger request no longer feels separate. It feels like continuing the story you've already started. Small agreements quietly become larger commitments. How many major decisions began with something that seemed too insignificant to matter? Emotional priming. Before discussing an important topic, someone tells a touching story. Maybe they remind you of your childhood. Maybe they make you laugh. Maybe they trigger fear. Your emotional state changes first. Only then do they present their argument. Neuroscience has repeatedly shown that emotion strongly shapes judgment and memory. You rarely think in a completely neutral state. The feelings already present in your mind become part of how you evaluate whatever comes next. This is why advertisers rarely begin with statistics. They begin with emotion. Once your feelings shift, your reasoning often follows without realizing why. Are you evaluating the idea itself or the emotion that arrived just before it?